I want to be very practical. It is not possible for anybody to follow every sentence that is said, but we should make an effort because that is the intention of the ritual. Opens out your mind to understand your own self and then to conduct yourself in a different way. And I'm sure Masonry would have if you are really taking Masonry in very seriously, it will reform you, transform you, and bring about a transmutation. All of us should remember that when our sojourn in the sublunary abode is finished, and then we are answerable to the great I am, the Alpha and Omega, what we did here. And if you keep that in mind and keep all the rituals that teach you in mind, I'm sure when the day comes when you have to give account of your own self, you will feel that you have marked well on earth, and you will definitely receive that crown of glory from the Lord, the color of which will never ever fade. Thank you.
It's really captivating, Right Worshipful Brother Dr. John Reginald. I now request Right Worshipful Brother Bharat Vipur to come to the stage and
Worshipful Master, Worshipful Brother Ranganath, Vijay Krishnan, Right Worshipful, the Regional Grand Master, Most Worshipful, the Past Grand Master, Right Worshipful, the Deputy Grand Master, Right Worshipful Brother Dr. John Reginald, and Right Worshipful Brother Major Dr. Raja, Right Worshipful Brother and Very Worshipful Brother and Worshipful Brother and all. At the very outset, my very sincere apologies for being late, but I couldn't help it. I had to be with my daughter. She was getting her eyes checked up, and it took a little longer and then he got stuck in traffic. I had to drop her and come here. So I sincerely apologize for my delay. I would like to thank the Worshipful Master for having collected this dedicated team of young Masons, like Brother V.M. Srinivasan, Brother Shankar, and Worshipful Brother Rakesh Keswani, and putting together this team to put this project together. Congratulations. My brother, the topic I have chosen is called Demystifying Freemasonry. One can approach this subject from several different angles. One can concentrate on the origins of Freemasonry and attempt to narrate its historical development. I do not want to get into this aspect at this point in time, but though just to make a personal observation. I believe that Freemasonry had its roots in ancient India more than 7,000 years ago, and that its teachings migrated to Egypt about 5,000 years ago. Thereafter, it crossed the Red Sea, as told in the Holy Bible, along with Moses, into the Promised Land. The second approach could be to attempt to disprove the conspiracy theorists, of which through all ages there has never been a shortage of. Accusative fingers have been pointed at Freemasons and Freemasonry in general from time immemorial. The conspiracies generally fall under three categories: political, which are usually allegations of control of government by a so-called New World Order. They are religious, usually involving allegations of anti-Christian and satanic beliefs and practices, and cultural, usually involving popular entertainers. Suffice it to say, my brethren, that all these are either deliberate, self-seeking lies or misinterpretations of ideology and symbolism. Anyone who is a Freemason knows about the importance placed on the belief in a spiritual power, with equal respect shown to all religions, the inviolable obligations to the practice of brotherly love, relief, and truth, the three fundamental principles, the strict injunction against polluting the brotherhood with divisive discussions of a political or a religious nature, and the admonition to follow the golden rule: do unto others as you would wish that they should do unto you. Thus, let us not waste our time explaining ourselves to those with atrophied minds. One can also try and explain the structure of Freemasonry and its various orders and degrees. Most of you would have heard of the 33rd degree. in popular fiction, media, and may have also fancied yourselves obtaining that 33rd degree. No doubt many of you have already obtained it or will do so in due course. But my brethren, there are several hundreds of degrees which are being practiced as we speak now. There's no end to it, so there's no point in trying to explain that in this particular time. I would like, on this occasion, to confine myself to taking a more practical look at Freemasonry, to understand it, to try and demystify it. The questions I would like to put are, what is Freemasonry? Who are the appropriate candidates for Freemasonry? Why were we attracted to Freemasonry? What did we hope to get out of it? Did we get what we sought? What keeps us within its fold? And how do we explain Freemasonry to the profane? These are the questions which I shall try to confine myself to. These are all profound questions that cannot be answered flippantly. They require a serious introspection, hopefully leading to clarity in one's own mind. Only with such clarity in one's own mind can one hope to expound on its virtues to the uninitiated. Let us begin with the definition of Freemasonry as disclosed to us in the very first degree. We are told that Freemasonry is a peculiar system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. Let us try and understand this very simple statement, what it portends. Please note that the very first defining words are that it is a system of morality, although it may be peculiar. Let us expand on this. The word peculiar as an objective does not just mean eccentric or odd, although that is what probably we look to others from the outside world. The word peculiar means distinct from all others, or belonging distinctly or primarily to one person, a group, or a kind, or special, or unique. It is this meaning that is relevant in this context. Freemasonry is not for everyone. Brethren, we are also told at our initiation that to become a Freemason, one must be of free and of good report, a just, upright, and free man of mature age, sound judgment, and strict morals. This admonishment is not to be taken lightly or irreverently. One must exercise great caution in choosing the right candidate who displays all these qualifications. Allow me to quote from the preeminent Mason, General Albert Pike. I quote, "Beware of those who wish to join Freemasonry out of idle curiosity, or because they hope to profit by it in their business affairs, or secure them aid in distress. Others seek to learn our supposed mysteries or to acquire the titles, decorations, and distinctions Masonry confers. Many are satisfied with Masonic rites or degrees that are but pale shadows and teach nothing of value. Few care for the great truths of Masonic philosophy or become interested in the study of its ancient symbols. Do you care for these truths?" I continue, quote, "It will be worth or worthless to you according to your capacity and the value you set upon these studies. You're here to think if you can think. You're here to learn if you can learn," unquote. An unshakable belief in the Almighty, a reverence for fellow humans, an unalloyed patriotism for one's native land, an unmitigated commitment to uphold its civic society are essential requirements for anyone to become and remain a Freemason. Brethren, I shall repeat that. An unshakable belief in the Almighty, a reverence for fellow humans, an unalloyed patriotism for one's native land, and an unmitigated commitment to uphold its civic society are essential requirements for anyone to become and remain a Freemason. One of the fundamental tenets of Freemasonry is that all members are united in a bond and a fraternity of brotherhood under the fatherhood of God. We all know the Sanskrit phrase, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which encapsulates this. We are all children of the one God. a God whose name is different to his very many different children. To quote from the mystical lecture, the first principle in the Holy Royal Art chapter, which is arguably the most profound content among all Masonic rituals, it says, the primordial God, quote, is the actual, future, eternal, unchangeable, and all-sufficient God who alone has his being in and from himself and gives to all others their being, so that he is what he was what he is, and will ever remain both what he was and what he is from everlasting to everlasting, all creatures being dependent on his mighty will and power. The same lecture goes on to say, God is described as, quote, I am that I am, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last, who was and is to come, the Almighty. Finally, the same lecture says, I am and shall be, Lord in heaven or on high, Father of all, in every age, in every clime, adored by saint, by savage, and the sage, Jehovah, Joe, or Lord. My brethren, listen to these words. What do they tell us? Don't you feel that you're but a small cog in a wheel? Don't you feel that you're a minnow amongst the whales around you? Don't despair, my brethren. Our Lord makes it clear that we are his children. He is our Father in heaven. We as humans, with all our foibles and weaknesses, may cloak ourselves with petty differences. But the Lord is beyond anything that we can conceive or place in pigeonholes. He is supreme. His power is limitless. His love for all cannot be contained. He does not discriminate amongst his children. These are the fundamental verities of all great religions. The volumes of the sacred law, as we refer to the holy books, that always lie open on our altars whenever we are engaged in labor, all propagate this fundamental truth. Humans may interpret these divine commands according to their individual predilections. Humans may twist and pervert these pronouncements. It is not for us to succumb to these baser instincts, but to rise superior to our grief, intent only on doing our job with friendliness and joy in our day and our generation. Freemasonry provides a structured methodology to help us transition from an unpolished state, a rough ashlar, to that of enlightenment, a perfect ashlar. The story of the building of King Solomon's legendary temple that forms the basis for our craft, the first 3 steps that every Mason ought to take, may be read purely as a story and nothing more. In that case, the young Master Mason would have gained nothing from his entry into our fraternity. He may at best become a knife and fork Mason, or enamored of rank and regalia, became a careerist Mason, always hankering for more and more pomp and circumstance, signifying nothing. At worst, he may cease attending the lodge meetings and over a period of time drop out too. That is not what this story is about. As I mentioned to you earlier, it is an allegory. The word allegory comes once again. What is an allegory? It is a moral, a parable, a myth, or a story that has some symbolic lesson to be imparted. What is that symbolic lesson? The lesson, my brethren, is that the story of the craft legend is not that of a physical structure that was built several thousand years ago. It is the story of the allegorical structure that is you. Remember, we are told that Freemasonry seeks out good men and helps them become better by polishing the rough ashlars with education and experience and transforming them into perfect ashlars. By better does not mean that you're better than somebody else. It just means that you become better than what you were earlier. You become a better son, a better brother, a better husband, a better father, a better colleague, a better boss. In short, you become a better person. Let us see how this works.